few years ago, I was like a donut. I was like a donut with a hole inside, empty inside. I didn't know the reason why, but there was something missing. Well, if you stay a little bit more, I have some more here, so maybe we can share. And if you come tomorrow, I'll have some more, because there's some more in my room. So, yeah, I'm just going to put it somewhere right here. But I was like a donut with a hole in my heart, and I didn't know the reason why. I read a story that made so much sense to me. It's the story of a girl. She goes to see a psychologist. And she goes and she speaks with the psychologist because it seems that her relationship's been failing and failing and failing and failing and failing, and she doesn't know the reason why. She's a Christian. She loves God. She goes to church. But it seems that she's trying to be in a relationship with people and things doesn't work at all. Each time she meets a guy, and after a couple of weeks, month, it doesn't work. Sometime at the beginning they're really in love. You know how it is. and then things doesn't work. So she's wondering the reason why things doesn't work. So she goes to the psychologist, to the counselor, and the counselor explained to her the reason why things doesn't work. So she listens to her story. And then, this is what she tells her. Listen to this. This is cool. She tells her that sometime when you come home, after a long day, you've been outside all day, you're very hungry, you could have eaten outside, but you did not. And you didn't because, you said, I'm gonna eat healthy. Some of us want to do that. I know that some doesn't care, like you can eat, like drink food and stuff, but, she made a conscious choice to eat healthy. So she says, I'm going to get home and I'm going to eat healthy. But it's been a long day. So as soon as she rushes home, she opens the fridge. She looks inside. And then she realizes that, man, I don't have time to cook. It's going to take too long. I just need to eat. So she goes. She opens a bag of chips, and she goes and she eats because she's starving. Some of us have been starving emotionally so much that we cling to everybody. I'm going to say that again. Some of us, we've been starving emotionally so bad that we cling to the wrong people, that we go to the wrong places, that we go to the big cities because we're starving emotionally. Guys, I was starving emotionally. The problems did not come from these girls that I thought that they were the problems. I was the problem. I needed something. No. I was the problem. Maybe they were. Maybe they were in some kind. But it's easier to see the problem in others. And don't look at yourself. There's a story in the Bible that I love so much. It's a story about a guy. The guy became a king. You know, he came from a small family. He came from, a small clan. He was a nobody. And then one day, he became a king. He became the most important man in the nation. You think that the story is going to go well because he became that man, that great man that everybody looked upon. But in the story, when you read the story, you actually realize that he goes all the way downhill because he is the issue. He is the problem. And he never pays attention to what's happening inside of him. Let me tell you something. You want to be in a relationship with people? You really need to pay attention to what's happening inside of you. You want to be in a relationship with God? You better pay attention. It can't be a one-way street. It has to be a two-way street. So, during the entire week, we're going to talk about relationships. And tonight, I want you to turn to your neighbor. Turn to your neighbor, to the person that is close to you. Say, neighbor or neighbor. Neighbor or neighbor. Pay attention to your dashboard. We got to say that again. Neighbor or neighbor. Pay attention to your dashboard. Guys, we got to pay attention to our dashboard. I shared bits of that story last week. It's the story. I was driving like Dominic. Do you guys know who Dominic is?
Dominic Toretto. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I was driving like Dominic, but I didn't have the skills. So we were in a snowstorm, and I was driving fast, I saw everybody slow down, but did Teddy slow down? Nope. Why? I had Yokohamas. Watch this. So everybody's slowing down, but, Teddy has Yokohamas, good tires, Yokohamas. So I'm speeding up. Everybody's slowing down. I'm speeding up. Then I realize is that snow is piling on the road. But do I slow down? No. Why? No. I have Yokohamas, so I don't need to slow down. So I'm there, driving until there is a curve on the highway. And guess what? My car does not follow the curve. My car goes straight ahead. And boom, I got into a car accident with myself. 100K. I was driving 100 kilometers per hour. No money this time. So I almost died. But watch this. This is the interesting thing. Though I was crazy, and I tell you that, guys, you need to slow down when there is a snowstorm. This is what happened. God was merciful with me. Amen. God was good with me. And because God was good with me, God spared my life, and he gave me a German car. Yeah. You know, I don't know what kind of car you guys drive, but German cars are the best cars ever. Yeah. My brother used to drive a German car, you know, like, you know, BMW, you know, that's German cars, you know, Benz, you know, that's German car. So guess what? The Lord blessed me. I had a Korean car, and now with the money that I got, I bought a German car for the same price. So I got an upgrade. You know, though I was foolish, God protected me and I got an update. So when I got that car, I went to get it to the dealership, a Volkswagen that I still have today. It runs smooth. You know, fuel consumption is crazy. You know, with $20, like 4 of us could go to Montreal. $20. Yeah. No. You give 20. You give 20. Yeah. She gives 20, you know. So I put 20, you know, and who is riding with us? Josiah? You want to ride with us? So you're riding with us. So 4 of us, like, we pay just 20, like, and with my car, not your car, you know, we can drive all the way to Montreal, you know, all the way to Quebec City. So the Lord blessed me with that car. But I told you something before. Neighbor, check your dashboard. So watch this. I did not check my dashboard. There was a light in the dashboard. I did not check that light. And because I did not check that light, I was driving on the highway and I lost power. You know, almost like you're driving like you know, as if you have a tractor, you know, instead of having a car, and everybody is honking at you, you know, saying, "Grandpa, go on the side of the road." So I lost power. I did not know the reason why. And when I went to the mechanic says, "Teddy, was there a light, you know, that came on your dashboard?" And I said, "Yeah, a week ago." And this is what he told me. With your German car, when the light comes in, you only have 100 kilometers, not money, 100 kilometers to go into the dealership. If not, you're going to have troubles. This is where it comes interesting. Your emotions are like these lights that comes into the dashboard. You really need to pay attention to what's happening inside of you. You really need to pay attention to your emotions. You remember that story? There was a guy named Cain and Abel. He had a brother named Abel. And God told him, sin is what? Crouching at the door of your heart. In other words, there is something happening inside your heart. Pay attention. Do right. And what happened? He did not pay attention to what was happening in his heart. So he gave in and he killed his brother. Now there's the story of his king. His name is King Saul. We find his story in 1 Samuel chapter 15. 1 Samuel chapter 15. So I'm going to take the story for you. And this is exactly, let me tell you what happens. He just became king. The Lord really blessed him. But God tells him to do something. He says, "You see the Amalekites? The people that are causing problems, these people that are sinful, that have sinful behaviors. This is what the Lord tells him. You need to go, and you need to wage war against them. First of all, they are sinful. Second of all, we know them all around the nations, and they're causing a lot of trouble. They're merciless. So you need to go, and this is what I ask you to do. I ask you to kill everybody. There's something in the Bible that I do not understand. There are many things in the Bible that we do not understand. Here, in this case, God says you need to wipe the entire nations. But do you know what Saul does? He goes, and then he takes the king, and he takes all the things that are according to the Bible, all the things that are great, So he actually goes and he takes, some of the camels, the sheep, the donkeys, the best things that are there, and he brings them to be sacrificed to God. That is something that we need to understand about this story, is the fact that in those days, when you go to war, you bring what is best with you. You remember the story of Daniel? Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So there was war against Israel. So guess what? Against the people of God. So, the king took what was best. So he brought Daniel back. He brought Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And here it is the same thing. God says, you wiped everything. And he said, well, I'm still going to bring what's good, what's best for God. So he goes and he does. And this is what he does. And then the story unfolds like this. This is what we hear. We hear that Samuel the prophet comes, and Samuel is very angry. Can you imagine? He is so mad. He goes, he storms, he looks, and he wants to see the king. So finally, you find out what the king is. And, it's one of these days when you need to have difficult conversations. Sometimes you need to have difficult conversations with your friends. You don't want to have them. You ghost them because you don't want to have these difficult conversations. They call you, but then, you ghost them. It's this type of conversation that is happening. So, the prophet comes, and he says, okay, tell me, what happened? You came back from war. How did things turn out? And this is what he says. He says, well, everything went good. We had a good victory. And by the way, God bless you. I've done everything that the Lord has commanded me to do. And Samuel says, really? You've done everything that God has asked you to do? But it seems that I'm hearing stuff. I'm hearing the sheep, and they're making noise. And he says, yes, I brought the king with me, and, I spared the best of the sheep and the oxen, and I want to sacrifice them for the Lord. But, really, I really obeyed everything that the Lord has told me. And then Samuel said, now you need to stop. Zip it. That's nice language, that's polite. But here it's stronger language. So he says, okay, you need to be quiet really loud. Now, is this really what happens? And then this is what he says. When you were little in your own eyes, were you not head of the tribes of Israel? And did not the Lord anoint you king over Israel? Now the Lord sent you on a mission and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they're consumed. Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Samuel goes. He speaks to him again and again and again, trying to help him come clean, and he does not say a word. Until finally, the issue is really pressed on. And he says, I was afraid of what people were going to say about me. When you don't pay attention to what's happening inside of you, you're going to do things to please people, just like you did. But at the end of the day, you're going to please nobody. When you don't pay attention to your emotions and to what's happening inside, you're trying to be in a relationship with people. But you cannot be in a healthy relationship with people if you're not in a healthy relationship with you. I don't think that this penetrates your heart yet. I'm going to say it again. Some of us are trying to be in a relationship with God. We're trying to do things to please God, but there is no way that we can please God if we do not spend time with God. So being with God is not a replacement for spending time with Him. A few years ago, I was trying to be, in a relationship with a girl. I love the girl, really, 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 I loved her. It's another one, not, the ones that I spoke to you about last week. It's another one. No, it's not my wife. I was young. I was young. I didn't know God at the time. So watch this. This is what I told you as well. Because my dad left when I was 10. And I came from a dysfunctional family. And at home, I had no, emotional connection with my home. I was hungry, emotionally hungry. And because I was emotionally hungry, I would cling to people. I would cling to girls because I needed them. Because we are all created for emotional connections. And unless you are emotionally mature, unless you're emotionally whole, you can't be in a healthy relationship with somebody else. So this is true with people in general, but it's also true with God. So Saul in this story is not emotionally whole. When you are emotionally whole, you're able to say to people no. Why? because you know that you can put boundaries. But when you're not emotionally whole, you want to please people and you always say yes. When you're not emotionally whole, there's another thing that happens to you. We see that in the story of Cain and Abel. We see that Cain is not listening to what's happening inside of his heart. And now it turns to anger. He lashes out. So, I was dating this girl, and I don't know what happened, but after a while, I realized that, it seems that she was not a good fit. We spent some time together. We would go and eat, outside, fast food and all these things. And the girl was very nice. She was a nice girl, but there was something that was missing in the relationship. The girl was numb. You know what it means? She was numb. She would not share anything about her emotions. I needed more than somebody to be with me. I needed somebody to connect on an emotional level. I'm challenging you this week to realize that it's much more than doing things for God. It's much more than doing things for people. It is much more than giving your tithe and offering. It is much more than, than coming to church. God needs access to your hearts. In fact, let me read something for you. This is what the Lord, actually Samuel says. Has the Lord has great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the Lord, the word of the Lord, he also has rejected you from being a king. In other words, this is what the Lord is actually saying. The Lord tells, through the voice of Samuel, Samuel, you did not obey. The reason why you did not obey is because you were afraid. You wanted to look good. From the beginning, we've been in connection together. But unlike David, who is saying, search me and try me, O God. Really look, pay attention to what's happening inside. You're not able to do that. So we can't have a relationship. During the entire week, you're going to see that all these things that are necessary for having a relationship with God are also the same thing that we need to have a relationship with someone. If you don't pay attention to what's happening inside of you, you're going to lash out. You're going to be angry. You can't have good conflict resolution. You can't forgive. If you can't forgive, it's not going to work out. So the only way that you can have a healthy relationship with God. It's by entering into a relationship with Him that really pay attention to what's happening inside. I want you to turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor or neighbor, pay attention to your dashboard. Neighbor or neighbor, pay attention to your dashboard.